480 BC. 300 warriors stood in a mountain pass watching death march toward them. Over 200,000 Persian soldiers, the largest army the ancient world had ever assembled, advancing like a human tsunami. The math was simple and horrifying: 667 enemies for every defender. The Spartans knew they would all die. Not might die, would die. And yet they stayed, chose death when escape was possible, because they understood something their enemy didn't. Sometimes 300 corpses can save civilization itself. By the time the sun set 3 days later, these warriors would be dead but immortal, and the entire course of Western history would pivot on their sacrifice. What you're about to witness isn't just history's most brutal last stand. It's the moment ordinary warfare transcended into legend, when bronze met flesh and changed everything. You'll discover why King Leonidas chose only men with living sons, not for victory, but for glorious death. You'll learn the shocking betrayal that sealed their fate, and the brutal final moments that made them eternal. But here's what the history books hide: the oracle's dark prophecy that haunted Leonidas, the psychological warfare that broke Persian morale before steel met steel, and the strategic genius that turned certain death into Greece's salvation. To understand how 300 men held back an empire, we must journey back 10 years to when Persian pride first bled on Greek soil. At Marathon, something impossible occurred. A small Greek force humiliated the mighty Persian Empire. For the first time in living memory, the unstoppable had been stopped, sent running back to their ships in disgrace. This defeat festered in Persian royal blood like infected wounds. When Xerxes inherited the throne from his father Darius, revenge became more than desire. It became obsession, divine mission, the reason for his existence. Xerxes wasn't merely a king. Ancient sources called him the God King, builder of impossible bridges, commander of nations so vast his armies drank rivers dry. He spent an entire decade preparing not just to defeat Greece, but to erase it from existence itself. What followed defied every rule of ancient warfare and divine law. Xerxes commanded engineers to build a bridge of boats across the Hellespont over a mile of open, angry water. When storms destroyed his first attempt, legend says he ordered the sea itself whipped 300 times for defiance. Then he built the bridge again, because gods don't accept failure from nature itself. 2 million men marched across that bridge if we believe Herodotus, though modern scholars debate the exact numbers. What's certain? The force was massive beyond ancient comprehension, darkening the landscape like locusts, consuming everything in its path. Meanwhile, in Sparta, a different king prepared for a different kind of war. Leonidas, called the Lion, born under a prophecy that would haunt his every decision. Sparta must lose a king or lose itself. Unlike Xerxes, who ruled millions, Leonidas commanded only thousands. But what thousands they were! You must understand what Sparta truly was to grasp what followed. Not a city, a barracks. Not citizens, weapons forged in human form. Boys torn from their mothers at age 7, trained to kill or die, beaten and starved to breed hardness into their bones. By age 30, they were the ancient world's most feared warriors, men who knew nothing but combat, who practiced dying the way other men practiced living. While Persian soldiers were farmers and craftsmen conscripted for war, every Spartan was professionally built for one purpose: to stand where others would flee, to fight when others would surrender, to die when death served Sparta. Then, Xerxes made a decision that would haunt him forever, one that seemed tactically sound, but was strategically catastrophic. Instead of sailing his fleet straight to Sparta's shores, he chose to march his millions through a narrow coastal pass called Thermopylae, the Hot Gates, named for sulfur springs that still steam today. The pass was barely 100 meters wide at its narrowest point, mountains rising like walls on one side, sea crashing against cliffs on the other. The mathematics alone stagger the mind. 2 million Persians attempting to funnel through a space smaller than a modern football field. Leonidas saw what Xerxes missed opportunity, where others saw only suicide. The narrow pass would negate Persian numbers completely. Their cavalry would be useless. Their millions would become hundreds in actual combat. But accepting this mission meant certain death, and Leonidas knew it. The oracle's prophecy echoed in his mind. A king must fall, or Sparta falls with him. When he called for warriors, he didn't summon Sparta's full strength. He selected exactly 300 men, specifically men with living sons. Think about what that choice reveals. He wasn't choosing soldiers for victory. He was choosing men whose bloodlines would survive their deaths, men who could die knowing their names would continue. The Persian force that approached Thermopylae defied comprehension and probability. Ancient sources claim over 200,000 combat troops, with supply trains and support personnel pushing totals into the millions. Modern historians debate exact numbers, but all agree the force was massive beyond any previous army. 1,000 ships darkened the Aegean Sea. Engineering corps who could build bridges from nothing marched alongside. Supply trains stretched to the horizon, requiring entire cities' worth of provisions daily. Against this, Greece assembled 7,000 men. Only 300 were Spartans, the rest from Thespiae, Thebes, smaller city-states. Brave men, certainly, but not bred for death the way Leonidas' chosen had been. Together, they marched north toward the narrow pass, each step taking them closer to history and away from life. Picture the scene as they arrived. Thermopylae, where sulfur springs bubbled from the earth, filling the air with the smell of Hades itself. The pass rose gently from the sea, barely wide enough for a cart. Mountains towered on the left, preventing flanking. The ocean crashed against rocks on the right, negating naval approach. A single phalanx locked shields and thrusting spears could hold this ground against thousands. But Leonidas understood something deeper than tactics. This wasn't just favorable ground, it was a killing floor designed by the gods themselves. Persian numbers meant absolutely nothing if only a few could fight at once. Their cavalry, the terror of open battlefields, would be trapped and useless in the narrow confines. Their archers, who could darken the sky with arrows, would find Greek shields forming a roof against their storm. The brutal mathematics of confined space would transform certain defeat into possible miracle. As Greeks took position, Leonidas addressed his 300 with words that history has preserved. When a Spartan complained about Persian arrows being so numerous they would block out the sun, the king smiled. "Good, then we'll fight in the shade." The men laughed, because Spartans understood that humor in the face of death is courage's truest form, but fate had prepared one final cruelty. A hidden path wound through the mountains above Thermopylae, known only to locals who grazed goats in the high passes. If Persians discovered it, they could surround the Greek position, turning defensive advantage into death trap. Leonidas posted 1,000 Phocian allies to guard the path, praying desperately that it remained secret. What the Persians witnessed next as they arrived shattered their confidence before a single blow was struck. The Spartans exercised naked in full view of scouts, oiling their muscled bodies, combing their long hair with elaborate care. To Persian eyes, this looked like madness or mocking contempt. They didn't understand it was ritual warriors preparing their bodies for funeral rites, making themselves beautiful for death. When Persian scouts reported this behavior to Xerxes, the god king laughed at Greek insanity. But his advisor, a Greek exile named Demaratus, who knew Sparta's ways, issued a warning that made the laughter die. These men are preparing to die. And prepared Spartans are the deadliest force on earth. They will sell their lives so dearly you will regret every drop of blood you pay for this ground. Xerxes dismissed the warning as cowardice. Then came the moment that still echoes through 25 centuries. The god king sent an ambassador under flag of truce with a simple demand: surrender your weapons and you may leave with your lives. Leonidas gave 2 words in response. 2 words that would ring through eternity in every language: Molon Labe, come and take them. The archaeological evidence reveals something horrifying about what was to come. Excavations at Thermopylae have uncovered thousands upon thousands of Persian arrowheads, broken spear points, and human remains compressed in a space smaller than a city block. The killing ground was set. What would follow wasn't battle in any normal sense, it was systematic slaughter raised to art form. But first came 4 days of waiting, 4 days of psychological warfare as brutal as any physical combat. Xerxes held his position, expecting Greeks to flee at the sight of his assembled multitudes. He wanted surrender, not costly assault. Each sunrise, the defenders stood firm at their posts, refusing to break. Each sunset, Persian confidence eroded a little more. The god king's aura of invincibility began to crack. On the eve of battle, as the fourth day of waiting ended, Leonidas gathered his 300 for their final meal together. "Eat well tonight," he told them with that grim Spartan humor, "for tomorrow we dine in Hades." They knew. Every single man understood this was their last meal on earth, their last sight of stars, their last breath of sea air. And still they stayed, still they joked, still they sharpened their weapons and checked their armor. The numbers tell a story of impossible courage. 300 Spartans, 700 Thespians, smaller contingents from other cities, perhaps 7,000 total. Dawn would bring 200,000 enemies to their bronze shields. Dawn of the fifth day brought decision, brought blood, brought the transformation of men into legends written in bronze and flesh. 4 days Xerxes had waited on his golden throne, positioned to watch Greek fear build. 4 days the Greeks had exercised, joked, prepared their spirits. The psychological battle was over. Now came the physical reckoning. Xerxes sent his Median and Sicyan troops first, not his best warriors, but good soldiers who'd conquered nations across 3 continents. They advanced in waves, confident in overwhelming numbers, expecting quick victory over trapped and outnumbered Greeks. Then everything changed in a single moment of brutal contact. The Persians hit the Greek line like ocean waves hitting a cliff of bronze and iron will. Shields locked with practiced precision, spears thrust in perfect coordination. The narrow pass became a meat grinder of flesh and metal. Here's the first truth of Thermopylae that Xerxes failed to grasp. Persian numbers meant absolutely nothing. Only the front ranks could actually fight in the confined space. Those behind pressed forward uselessly, pushing their comrades onto waiting Greek spears, unable to see the slaughter ahead. Spartans worked like a machine built for killing, every movement practiced 10,000 times since childhood. Thrust the spear through gaps in armor, withdraw as the dying man falls. Thrust again at the next target. Their longer spears gave reach advantage. Their heavier armor turned Persian strikes harmless. Their training made killing look effortless. What Xerxes didn't realize from his distant throne would cost him everything.